Stop me if you've heard this before. Evil terrorist organization kidnapping people by the hundreds, possibly thousands, conditioning them to unspeakable horrors of cybernetic genetic enhancements as well as modifications, and brainwashing to control them to make them the perfect soldiers to carry out their one goal of world domination. That's right. This would sound very much like an anime, almost like a manga. Well, you're not wrong, as it was the original premise of Cyborg 009, created by Shotaro Ishinomori. I feel like I have a hard time always pronouncing his name. He created something that would change the world, but he wanted to try something different. Originally, he wanted to create a Skull Rider, but people thought that was a little too hardcore, so they asked him to tone it down. Around 1970, he wrote and created the manga for a cyborg soldier that was created with the power of cybernetic enhancements and genetic modifications to become the world's perfect soldier to be a commander for an army, known as Shocker. That creature was supposed to be modified with not just cybernetics, but with DNA of a grasshopper, because for some odd reason they wanted all their soldiers to have superior animal-like abilities as well as the cybernetics as well. The Hopper was supposed to be the leader of all of them. The only problem is they didn't know exactly who to subjugate that to, until they came across a young man, fresh out of college, Takeshi Hongo. He was very intelligent with a high IQ and physical prowess that make other people scream or cry. They took this man and they decided to make him their perfect general. However, fate would be in his favor because after his modifications, the scientists who got a new will of their own, realizing everything that they've done was only going to hurt people even more or get people killed. So, using the technology that he was aware of, the scientists decided to break Takeshi Hongo's shackles and allowed him to become his own man. In doing so, set in motion a legacy that will never be forgotten. That's right, this is the origin of Kamen Rider. The reason why I speak of this is because recently, Kamen Rider has become a little more of a positive hero, not just over in Japan. It's always been huge over there, but it's been slowly creeping its way over into the West. Now, if it wasn't for Kamen Rider, we wouldn't have half the things we have right now, like Power Rangers. In fact, like I've stated a little bit ago, I think in my Kamen Rider Memory Heroes video, that if it wasn't for Super Sentai, we wouldn't have Power Rangers, because during that time, that's when Saban wanted to try to bring it over. So they bought a couple of the old episodes, especially seasons, and tried to Americanize it. It worked. And a lot of people don't see that that DNA is completely from Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. But that's a story for another day. The reason why I bring up this so much is because it began a legacy that would never be changed for a long period of time of entertainment. However, the original series of Kamen Rider was extremely brutal to the point where it almost never succeeded. The original story of Takeshi Hongo was so brutal that they almost got the show canceled because of all the things that they would do, especially when they fought a lot of the monsters. Because this being a shonen series, a lot of monsters and violence was in these series, but to be expected, it did hook people for a while, but a lot of parents were concerned that it was teaching their children bad habits. So around this time, the main protagonist, or should I say the actor for Takeshi Hongo, was injured during a period of time because he tried to do a stunt. Nobody realized that the main actor was also doing a lot of the stunts for the show too, but because of unforeseen events, he got hurt, and instead of killing the show off, they decided to replace him with another character for a little bit until he recuperated. Entered Hayato Ichimonji. He would become Kamen Rider number 2, or like they like to call him, Kamen Rider Nigo, whereas Kamen Rider Takeshi Hongo would be Kamen Rider Ichigo. Eventually, he would come back, but everyone enjoyed the Ichimonji saga of Kamen Rider because it was more lighthearted. It was goofy in certain spots, but it was a little more appealing, and because of that, it actually saved the series. Then, from there on, we had a legacy of other riders down the road, and 50 years later, it's still going strong. But because of an anniversary recently, you can't always have a new series without looking at the past that actually made it wonderful. And there's been a lot of good seasons. However, you never forget the first. And that's what this movie Shin Kamen Rider does. It pays homage to the very first series of Takeshi Hongo and Hayate Ichimonji's adventures to stop Shocker. And the movie was beautiful. It's almost like it's a love letter straight to the series. And this is my thoughts to it. However, normally when I do stuff like that, I would show you off a little bit of footage or even play some music in the background that would actually fit the theme. But Toei is kind of hard on this subject, so unfortunately I probably won't be able to show you too much. That plus, not to mention, the movie itself is still relatively in theaters despite it only having select theater showings and stuff like that, but nonetheless, we shall prevail. It feels like the more you watch the movie, if you're a fan of the series or even getting into it, you're watching the original because it has moments of camp to it, but it starts off crazy. I'm not going to go into too many spoiler heavy parts of the movie, but I'm just going to talk about the things that caught my attention the most. Case in point, the intro starts off with a high-speed chase. Two people on a motorcycle trying to get away from two trucks chasing after. You look real close, there's a spider web in between the trucks, almost as if they're trying to pincer the characters into a chokehold, which they successfully do because there's a barricade in front causing a crash. One of the people on the motorcycles go flying off a cliff, but they survive by falling. However, the opposition is meeting them down below. One man, or should we say creature, dressed in a red outfit with a helmet that resembles a spider, tells the woman that's on the floor that you're a traitor and my job is to bring you in. I am supposed to bring you and capture you alive. However, I'm going to make sure you don't ever escape again. As he approaches her, he looks as if he's going to gouge her eyes out. But before that can happen, him and his foot soldier of mooks look up to see on the cliffside a man wearing a grasshopper helmet. And a trench coat staring them down. He jumps at a very high velocity and comes down and proceeds to rain down blows on everyone. Now, at this point, you're starting to notice that he's not holding any of his punches back. Each punch, each kick, you can hear, you can see how visceral it is, because the moment he takes down two mooks, he slams them down head first. You could just see buckets, and I do mean buckets of blood gushing everywhere. It's brutal. It's very disturbing in certain spots, but then again, at the time for the Showa era, they can get away with a lot more. And like I said, that's what this feels like. It feels like a Showa era show because, let's be honest, nobody is safe around these time periods. Man, woman, and children, everyone was put on game or put on notice when it came to these organizations. They did not care. Only thing that they mattered about was achieving their goals. And if someone had to die, unfortunately, it was what it was. That's where we get our main character, Takeshi Hongo. He's just massacred an entire army of mooks, and it feels so surreal to him because after this, he's in the bathroom of an abandoned house trying to come to the realization of what he's done, because he just killed these people. But to him, it feels like it's not real because, yes, his body was doing it, but he didn't feel like he was in control. It felt like he was just watching while his body was on autopilot. And he's not wrong, because the moment he steps out and gets his answers from the woman as well as a new scientist that approaches, they tell him, you've been genetically and cybernetically modified. You are the Hopper. You are powerful. You are dangerous. You must use this power to protect. You've wanted this power since I first met you in college. You have it now. And this scares him because, yes, he always wanted the power to protect everyone close by, but the problem is, now that he has it, it's terrifying. Built with a belt, armor, and a helmet, as well as the other genetic modifications like I mentioned earlier. They spliced his DNA with grasshopper DNA, so it will be easier for him to use all of his newfound abilities. The killer instinct, unfortunately, is also keyed into his powers. For you see, one of the cybernetic enhancements that they gave him is he has the ability to absorb air within his body. In fact, that's how he transformed. If he absorbs enough air or currents of high velocity of wind into his body like a typhoon, he gets stronger, and this allows him to change. But because of the cybernetics, they told him if you absorb too much energy of wind, as well as their other energy they made up for the movie, which I believe was also part of the series too, but I don't want to go into detail. They told him if he absorbs too much, he can go crazy. And he said, kind of like how I killed those people. They said, yes, while you're in your helmet, your instincts to live kicks in and goes to be different limits that you were never capable of. Basically, while he's wearing that and he has enough wind in his system, it's fight or flight, and he just turns off his natural instincts, and the bloodlust comes out, and it terrifies him. At first, I thought the actor that was playing Takeshi Hongo was a little emotionless, but that was very stupid of me to think that. I'm probably not a good person to talk about this, but the more I think about it, from my point of view, is he does care. At first, I thought he didn't exactly, because other than him being terrified of him killing everybody around him, I thought it was because the way he carried himself in certain parts of the movie, he didn't care. But that's the problem. He cares a lot. That's why he was picked by his professor. He has a very, very large heart. And unfortunately, with everything literally happening to him, he just doesn't know how to properly deal with it, because he's never killed anyone before. And with other reasons why, plot-wise, he lost his father in the line of duty because his father was a police officer. And he's coming to grips with, can he be like his father, even with this enormous amount of power that's been gifted to him? Can he be like his father and sacrifice himself for others? Can he protect with the power of destruction? It's a really, really good story when you stop to think about it. And I thought, because the actress that's with him that played Rukira, I keep having issues with her name, but let's just call her Rumi. Rumi gives off the impression she does not care, because for the longest period of her life, she really did not, because she herself was a member of a shocker since she was a child. So it's understandable to see that her emotions are not exactly present, because she uses more logic than anything. But Takeshi, he, like I said, at first gave off the gaze that he just didn't feel. But that's where I was wrong. He felt everything. He felt the weight. He felt the shift. He feels how easy it is to take a life. And he knows in order to actually protect people, unfortunately, he's going to have to keep killing. And it's terrifying. But the more you watch the movie, the more you realize that he's actually doing a very, very wonderful job. All the characters in the movie actually play their roles really well. There are certain spots in there that kind of felt but to be fair, sometimes you need that slowdown to get back to where you are for the story. I'm not really good at reviewing movies because I don't really do that kind of thing. But I wanted to actually sit here and talk about this because it was a really lovely, bloody movie. And I'm happy I got to see it. I'm happy I got to see, it's like a mini, it's like I said, it's like just a retelling of the adventures of Takeshi Hongo as well as Hayato Ichimonji, as he is the second generation writer. Now, he is actually built from the same mold almost, except he's the upgrade. How Hayate doesn't need to generate wind to transform with his driver. He can just go, but he can also, like Takeshi, absorb wind and energy to make himself stronger. This becomes vital because during the fight scene where they get into it, the girl, Rumi, she breaks him of his chains and makes him realize that he is his own man, and he becomes very important. But some other things happen and they're forced to actually work together. I don't want to go too much into detail because I really want you to try to go see this movie for yourself because it's worth it. If you're not a fan of tokusatsu stuff like this, I highly say give it a chance for the story itself and the action. But if you are a Toku fan, you're definitely going to love this movie. I recommend it, and I hope you find a way to see it. I was lucky to see it on the 5th because there was actually originally supposed to be just a showing just around the 30th, but due to popular demand, it was guaranteed a secondary showing, and I'm glad I was able to see it. But if, hopefully, because of how well it did, I really hope that we get Blu-ray copies or DVD copies or any way we can see it whatsoever digitally. But I really do recommend that you watch this movie, especially if you're into like body horror and genetic stuff like that, or if you're just into like good drama and thrillers. It was really good. Choreography was great. The CGI actually was a little spotty at certain spots, but I'm used to watching the show, so it's not that big a deal for me. But all in all, I really enjoyed what I saw. It's like a proper love letter to Mr. Ishinomori, and all intents and purposes, a thank you for him giving us this gift. If you like what you see, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I love to hear your feedback. Also, if you did get to see the movie, write down what was your favorite part of the movie, you know? Because like I said, the fights were really good, especially against the Hornet Augment. You guys have a good one.